to his parents, who have pushed for the last 18 years for justice and been very critical of the way that the police in particular handled the case of the death of Stephen Lawrence. We heard, as I was just saying, from Doreen Lawrence, of the anger that was mixed with her grief, with her relief today. And we also heard from Neville Lawrence there saying 2 of his son's killers had been convicted. He won't rest easy until all of them have been. Let's talk now to a family friend of the Lawrences, very senior Labour figure, Chuka Umunna, Shadow Business Minister. We're hearing an awful lot, a lot to take in, but what do you make of what's happening right now?
Well, I think, as Doreen said, and our hearts absolutely go out to the family. I mean, the calm, dignified, absolutely determined way they have pursued justice in this case is an example to us all. But as I think Doreen absolutely emphasised, whilst I think there's a huge sense of relief that there is some justice today for the family, it's certainly not a cause for celebration, because the family, London, we lost a real shining bright star in Stephen on that tragic day. And I think it really does serve as a reminder to us all that we may live in one of the most tolerant, if not the most tolerant and multicultural capital city in Europe, and certainly one of the most tolerant countries in Europe, but we can never ever be complacent about these things. And as my colleague David Lammy, the Member of Parliament for Tottenham, has just stated on Twitter, we can't forget what has just happened in Salford, which is a salutary reminder that we have still to beat prejudice, hatred, and all the terrible things that sometimes happen amongst human beings in a community. One of the brilliant things that Doreen and the family set up as a lasting legacy to Stephen's memory is the Stephen Lawrence Charitable Trust. And I really would urge all the viewers of this programme to visit the website, which is stephenlawrence.org.uk, follow their Twitter account, which is SLT Trust, and get involved and donate to ensure that organisation goes on doing the fantastic work it is doing to expand the opportunities of young people in this capital city of ours. But yes, relief, a cause for celebration, no, but let's just remember that there are very great facets to this country, but we can never be complacent about them.
And is there a particular message to Britain's police forces when you say that? I thought I really noted what Doreen Lawrence was saying when she said racism and racist attacks are still happening in this country. The police should not use my son's name, she said, to say we can now move on. There's no closure for her in that sense.
Well, frankly, I mean, I don't think any of us can use this verdict today as an excuse to move on and pretend that we don't have problems, because we still do. I mean, look, when my father arrived in this country from Nigeria in the mid-1960s, there was a terrible relationship between the black and African and Caribbean community and the police at that time. And we saw that right through to the 1980s. My constituency covers part of Brixton, and of course we had race riots, which was very much provoked by the dreadful relationship we had at the time with the police. I think the police have moved on. I think the finding that came out from the Macpherson inquiry, which I went to visit when it was ongoing in Elephant and Castle, that there was institutional racism in the service at that time, has been accepted by the police service. I know, certainly talking to my borough commanders in Lambeth over the years, that there isn't a kind of knee-jerk defensive position which says we have no problems and that the service that the police are providing is always perfect. That is certainly not the message that I get. There is much more of a willingness to look into and investigate matters. Things aren't perfect, and that's why it's important that the community, elected representatives, community activists and groups work with the police to make sure that they can do the very best job that they can for our communities. So progression, yes, we are in a much better place, I feel, than we were 18 to 20 years ago, and that is very much thanks to the efforts of the Lawrence family, because if it wasn't for the Lawrence family campaigning as strongly as they did, they really persisted in the face of huge obstacles. And if they hadn't have done so, we would not have got the Macpherson report, which Jack Straw, to his credit, set up as Home Secretary. But we wouldn't have had all of that were it not for Doreen Neville and the family and their efforts and their absolute determination to see justice done. But actually it was more than that, because I think, certainly speaking to Doreen myself, that this wasn't just about the family. They thought that there was something inherently wrong here about the way the police were serving society and our society generally at the time, and they really were determined that they were going to change that. And I think we can all say that they've done so.
Chuka Umunna, one more question, not as a politician, as a person. What was your reaction as you heard that those murder guilty verdicts had come through?
Oh gosh, just relief. I mean, I remember really quite clearly when the news came through of Stephen's murder all those years ago. And my mum's instant reaction was, I don't want you going anywhere near Eltham or its surrounding areas, because she feared for me doing so at that time. I mean, this is something that shook this city, and it's just fantastic that we have some justice. Remember, not everybody who has been accused of the murder has been convicted today. But I just feel a huge sense of relief for the family, above all the family, because it's about them. I cannot imagine what they have been through. And they should not have had to wait this long for some justice. But thank the Lord that we have some justice for them today.
Chuka Umunna, thank you very much for sharing that reaction with us. You're watching BBC News. We are still bringing you reaction to the verdicts that 2 men are guilty of the murder of Stephen Lawrence 18 years ago. Let's remind you of what happened just a few minutes ago when Stephen's mother, Doreen Lawrence, came out of the court behind me.